Games you deserve.
Welcome to Games You Deserve, brought to you by Special Reserve Games. This week on the show, Eric takes us through the history of physical video game media. Smitty tours with rock stars in South America, and Mother Russia Bleeds comes to the Special Reserve.
You know, I was looking at some really old, cool video game stuff, as I may do every once in a while. You know, everybody's familiar with Pong, right? You know, Pong.
Sure.
Paddle goes up and down.
P-O-N-G.
Pong, yeah. You know, everybody knows that, and that's definitely one of the oldest, you know, video games. It's not the oldest. Pong is like what casual people think of as the oldest video game, and then like you talk to video game people, and a lot of them remember something like Space War, right? Space War was written in code on a punch tape. I mean, I know you know what punch tape and punch cards are, even
Got
though
some right under my desk.
And that's how you got online today, is you fed them into your mainframe.
No, I have 10 more AOL free 500-minute discs left. Thank you very much.
Trying to burn those up, yeah. It's still, they're all leftovers from 1993. So.
Yes, I got them from the from a Dallas, Texas office. Yes, it was amazing. Broadcast.com. You ever heard of it?
I only use CompuServe. But the mainframe worked a little bit differently. They actually had microprocessing available that could take your input and dynamically do some things with it. So it was a little bit different. But of course, those mainframes took up a warehouse, a room. You know, they were huge. They were massive. It's not something you're going to be able to take home. Pong, you could still, you know, they could shrink that down. You could take it home. You know, it was done a different way. Around 1975, in Japan, there was a game that was called Western Gun, and it used transistor logic the same way that Pong did. But when they were coming over to the U.S. with the game, they decided to make the same game, but using microprocessors and chips. So it's called Gunfight here in the United States. Space Invaders comes out in 1978. I mean, everybody knows Space Invaders.
It's here for Space Invaders.
Wow, that's gonna take out my eardrum.
Oh, you're so sensitive.
I know. And then I started thinking about the next step, and I know you remember this fondly, storing games on cassette tape, magnetic tape.
Yes.
Commodore 64 was that?
That was one of a few that did that. Yeah, Commodore 64 is probably the most prolific for home use.
They were that ugly, like weird manila colored plastic, or there was like off-white.
Oh yeah. And you used to have like a sheet of paper, right? Because you wrote down this game was at this time on the tape, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward through it, yeah.
Yeah, and if your counter on your tape player was not set to 0 at the beginning of the tape,
that's we all would hit that little button that sticked out the the 3 Z, and there's only 3 zeros, of course. You know, absolutely.
Yeah. So you'd have to line it up, and then like you'd fast forward until you were just before where it started. Type in your load command, and then hit enter, and it would seek to the beginning of that next game.
That's the year that pterodactyls disappeared from the face of the earth as well.
It feels like it. It feels like it. But in that same era, we went from magnetic cassette tape, which was nice but cheap, and had floppy disks.
You speak for yourself.
You can now insert your floppy disk. This is where things got difficult, though, when we talk about preservation, because Smitty, how were games distributed on floppy disk? Did they come in nice, fancy boxes originally with lots of cool stuff, or?
Oh, yes. Yes. I used to venture in Enid, Oklahoma. I used to go venture down to the Willow Shopping Center, is a little strip mall, and there was a place that fixed computers and whatnot, the same place that fixed my 5200 buttons, and they had a pegboard, a cork pegboard with Ziploc baggies with a floppy in them and a handwritten logo and like some kind of notes. And then the fancier developers would actually print off like a black and white picture, something that they made, like put it in the front of the Ziploc bag, and then those were stuck with thumbtacks to the corkboard. That's how I used to buy, or that's how I saw them distributed.
That's how everybody used to buy them back then. They didn't stick them in a nice box with artwork and shit. They didn't have money for that or means for that, you know.
They made them one at a time at their house.
But that was the coolest thing back in the floppy days, though, because you'd walk up and you'd be like looking at these things, and you're forced to either like look at those crude pictures and decide, or read the titles and kind of go, or if you were really lucky, the dude that worked there knew some shit about it, right?
Exactly. Like Eric would talk to you and he would be like, hey, I like that, and it's just like this or that. And then you had a moment to say, I like, Gun Wars. And he's like, it's just like that.
Yeah. And then
it was all word of mouth.
You'd pull that off of there and you'd pay your $10.
Word of mouth, though. I mean, that is the most organic guerrilla marketing you could ever achieve right there.
Yeah.
Now, this is really in the era before video games were mainstream. Like, this is like pre-Atari.
Totally. Well, it's still, even into like the mid-'80s, was still this.
But this is like, computers were not as big. Like, the Macintosh hadn't come around yet, or had just
even
came
the
out.
Apple IIe didn't really take off at a house. Like, it took off in schools and academia.
I remember having an Apple IIe in my class, and we would play games on there.
Right, and it was in the library, and that's what. But rarely did you see an Apple IIe in someone's. My cousin Brett had an Apple IIe at home, the founder of a game company. But that's the only guy in my whole life I ever saw an Apple IIe in their house.
And they were not cheap. At the time, they were not cheap.
No.
So,
and there was no internet. Hello, I mean,
in 1976, the Fairchild Channel F comes out, and that actually was the first home console to have cartridges with their own circuits on them that contained the game, had their own actual chips on them. And of course, a year after that, Atari comes out with a VCS, the 2600, and just blows it up and becomes cartridge time. Everybody knows those, everybody had a Nintendo or an Atari or something that did cartridges after that. And then, of course, what was next? What comes out after cartridges? Optical discs, right?
Sega CD is the earliest time I remember playing. I know I wasn't a computer guy. I didn't have a computer, but as far as a console goes, my friend had a Sega CD, and that was the first time I remember playing video games on a CD system like that.
But
it blew me away.
You know that optical discs were like invented in the late 60s and actually put into use in the 70s?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they've been around for a lot longer than their practical use, but of course, they were super cheap to make compared to the cartridges, and you could store more data. Yeah, and you could store more data on them too. So
and they were supposedly less destructible,
which has now turned out to be not so true.
Not even
right?
Yeah, they get scratched up like crazy, man.
Yeah, I do want to say though. And I dug this up. I actually had to do the research on this because I wanted to figure this out. The first computer game, I'm going to blow your minds twice, in different ways. The first computer game on the Macintosh, not the PC. The PC actually didn't have the first computer game. The Macintosh had the first computer game on a CD. It was called The Manhole.
Oh, I thought it was called Terminal Velocity. God, the Manhole. That sounds like we're in the wrong podcast.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. That was 1989, but that was not the first game on CD. The first game on CD actually came out a year earlier than that, in 1988, and that was on PC Engine, which in the United States is known as the TurboGrafx 16. The Turbo CD had Fighting Street. And Fighting Street Fighting Street was a name used to avoid a copyright clash with Street Fighter.
No kidding.
What?
So the first game, I'm not even joking, the first game on CD ever
Was a
rip of Street Fighter.
yeah.
Was it the same? Was it pretty much the same game? Was it the exact same idea?
It is the exact same game as the first Street Fighter game.
Okay.
But dude, does that not define the video game business?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the first game out was a hack, you know, it was somebody else.
It's
That's
Fighting
hilarious.
Street. So, we talk about this and you look back and you think about what we do, right? We're preserving all of this physical, these games in
Let's
physical
bring back
media.
Fighting Street.
Yeah, no kidding.
Next release.
So, it's easy to go back and capture discs and cartridges and stuff. And it's easy even to go and like hunt down an Odyssey or a Pong machine, that type of thing. I mean, they're still out there. You can still find them. You can still collect them. It's a lot more difficult in some of the cases when we talk about some of the floppy disk stuff or the cassettes, right? Because they didn't come in a box. They were stored, tucked away. And then you ask me what I did with mine. I chucked those things years ago.
Yeah.
I do regret doing that.
They
of
were
course.
heavy. They were, eventually you're like, I don't want to move this box too.
And we weren't thinking about preservation back then, man. We were just enjoying the games.
Well, and honestly, a lot of it we were told was trash. It was blah, blah, blah. It could be reused and I mean, not to, talk about tapes, but I mean, just talk about VHS tapes, where
just right over the thing when you're done. You don't want that anymore.
I had a question about the disc versus cartridge thing, because we saw in the 90s, really everything went discs. And we had the PlayStation, we had the Sega Saturn, we had the Dreamcast, all CD based, and even the GameCube. Now, there was the N64, which was still cartridge based. And maybe, I don't know if you're going to cover this in your documentary, Eric, but I remember at the time my friend getting an N64, and the big selling point was there's no load times. It's awesome. I can just plug it in and play, and there's no load. Like that was a big selling feature for the cartridge. But I was like, why are they still using cartridges? I thought that was so weird that they made that choice to use a cartridge at that time.
Well, ultimately, the partnership that Nintendo had with Sony had failed dramatically. That's why we ended up seeing recently that Nintendo PlayStation, the one that they had in partnership, that prototype that sold for a butt ton of money. But they left off of that and went to Philips and worked with Philips on a partnership, and ultimately that's how Philips ended up working on the CDI, and they had a couple of really terrible Zelda games on that thing.
That's right. Yes.
And I think Hotel Mario might even be on that, or some Mario. Yeah. There's a couple of really bad Mario games on that thing too. But
wow.
But yeah, they stuck to their guns with this cartridge thing going into the 64, and in one way it kind of killed them, but in another way, yes, you're right. There were some serious advantages to doing that. Expense, however, was something that hurt them. Cartridges were more expensive than the discs to make. You could press discs way easier, way faster, and way cheaper. But cartridges took chips and plastics and all kinds of stuff to put together. At the same time, easy load and fast. You didn't have to wait for level 1 and then wait for level 2 and that type of thing.
That was in those early days. That was really a bad aspect of that. Now they went to those weird little discs of the GameCube. What was with that?
Well, it's just another attempt by them to both trim cost and apply some copy protection to that, right? Because the whole bay for the GameCube was small, and so you physically couldn't stick an entire full-size disc in there. Eventually, they came out with burnable mini DVDs too, so you could go and burn one, and with the right tools, stick that in your GameCube and go. Plus, in Japan, they had something called the Panasonic Q, which is basically a GameCube that's a little fancy, plays DVDs, and it accepts full size discs. So people started looking at that as, oh, can we use that to do some stuff? But yeah, Nintendo just has like this weird relationship with copy protection and pirating and that type of thing. And some of that.
They're trying to protect their games from being pirated, basically.
And I understand that. I get that. But, it's a cat and mouse game. So, but
now they have these little tiny little cards for the Switch, right? That's a whole different thing. Is that a cartridge or what is that? Is it just another version of the cartridge?
It's a cartridge. Ultimately, it's a circuit board with some, with a chip on there with data on it. But, I was looking at this from the idea of this preservation. We talk about how much we want to, preserve as collectors, and even what we do when we talk about Special Reserve, we put together a nice package, a package that's tactile, that you can feel and you can touch and you can experience something, right? And I'm sitting here staring at some of the boxes that we've made, and I think of the experience of when it finally arrives and I'm able to open that up, and it's something that I get to do one time for each of those, but I can keep kind of reliving that by sticking it up here and looking at it. And it reminds me a lot of what it was like when I was young, and I would, I'd get that game and I'd go to the mall with my dad and be like, all right, son, you get to pick one game today, choose wisely. And I'm standing in front of a wall of games. What do I pick? Do I get the thing that I've never seen before? Do I get the thing that my friend told me? Do I get the thing that's on the sign out front? This brand new one. What do I get? And then you take it home and, you're ripping open the plastic and ripping open the box and getting through that manual on your way home. And, all that feeling though, that whole experience. And, that preservation of that, and that we're not just preserving the code on a piece of media. We're preserving the experience. We're preserving the feeling. If this goes away, if this dies, right? This idea of being able to take home your media like that. And we talk about what's coming in beyond, right? What happened? How do you get a game on your phone? How do you get a game on your PC nowadays? And how do you get a game on console a lot of the times? You download it. What's that experience like?
The onset of digital downloads and SSDs instead of a disk, amazing. Loading times, blah, 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 damage.
Sure.
You don't have to carry around a small zipper bag of games, whatever. Get it. But, it all goes back to that one thing I always, that one of my vendors said, right? And he said, we were trying to just talk about what we're doing at Special Reserve, building these special physical versions of these great digital games. And we say it that way because it is that way now. It didn't always used to be that way. But he said, I kind of talk to people about printing and the value of a tangible asset in your hand. And they always say, well, what's that worth? And he says, well, I could just have a digital download of it. Anyway, what's the deal? And he goes, well, tell me how much the Mona Lisa costs. How much does a JPEG of the Mona Lisa, how much is it valued at? What's it worth?
Yeah.
Nothing, but what's the Mona Lisa worth? That's the difference. The picture of the Mona
Very
Lisa
much.
is worth nothing, but the actual Mona Lisa is priceless. It's invaluable. It's one of a kind. So it's not like, that's what we're making with these games, but kinda, because each one of the games that are being made are these developers' Mona Lisas. I've said this before in a previous episode. I'm sure I talk about it all the time, that this may be the only time that this one particular set of people, this one particular individual, the time is right, whatever, would even get to make this one particular game that is a, quote, Mona Lisa of video games. Or it's just a great game. It doesn't matter. It's just a great game. It's something that most people never in a million years would even get the opportunity nor have the skill set to start and finish a game.
This episode brought to you by Fetch. Give the gift of play.
Fetch is a game for dogs. What is it? It's a ball. We have large and small, depending on your dog's preference or maybe their physical size. If you buy a game of Fetch for $20, and that includes free shipping in the United States, we at Special Reserve will match that ball, giving one to another dog, a dog that's in need. We work with an organization called Street Dog Project here in Dallas, Texas. So every single time someone buys a game of Fetch for $20, you get a ball, and a dog that's homeless in dire physical need that's being fostered and sheltered also gets a ball. Why not give a game of fetch today? Go to specialreservegames.com, buy a game of fetch or two for your dog, and share the gift of play.
It's story time with Smitty.
Dan, it's just you and me. I don't think you've heard all these stories. Eric's heard all these stories at least 8 times. That's why he's going on AFK here. Well, my first girlfriend in 2nd grade was named Susie Thompson. Oh, wrong story, right?
No.
Well, I don't know, Dan. We've talked a little bit about a few things. Do you want to hear stuff about games or rock and roll or just personal?
Well,
we're not doing that.
They're all a little bit personal, I would assume. But I remember you, in passing at one time, telling me that you had taken a trip to South America for some reason, and that sounded intriguing to me. So let's hear about the South America story.
I did take a trip to South America. Specifically, we landed in Asuncion, Paraguay. I visited Buenos Aires.
When was this?
This was 2012. 2012.
The year the world was supposed to end.
Yeah, that's right. Right there. 2 years previous, in 2010, I had the H1N1 swine flu. So, these are the things that I remember. Well, It was weird because to go on this tour, I was on a concert tour, and I had a partner on that tour, a guy named Matt Sorum, who was the drummer from Guns N' Roses, Velvet Revolver. He drummed for The Cult. And, man, Matt Sorum is just one of the nicest, most sweetheart dudes I've ever met in my life. It's hard to believe he's in the rock and roll business because he's such a nice guy.
That's why he's still alive.
Yeah, he's got something, just starting this off. Matt has something called Adopt the Arts out there. And just without going into it, look up Adopt the Arts, specifically in California. But he's got a great organization that helps arts in public schools. But so Matt had a band that he was, it was kind of like a corporate band where they had kind of some all-stars that would play all the time. And so he had Steve Stevens, who was Billy Idol's guitarist and also played with Michael Jackson and wrote a record with Michael Jackson. And of course he had Duff McKagan and Gilby Clarke and from GNR, and he had some just amazing friends, right? I mean, he introduced me to some of the greatest rock stars the guys I grew up listening to. So anyway, there was an opportunity for me to be a part of a concert tour that went to South America. It was supposed to be about a 21-day tour. We were going to hit several countries, and each night was about 2.5-3 hours long. And what it was supposed to be was one band that was an all-star band that played all the greatest tunes, from the 70s, 80s, 90s, but it was played by the people who wrote them, sung by the people who sung them. And so on that tour was Gene Simmons, Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple. Then we had also Mike Inez on bass from Alice in Chains, Billy Duffy on guitar, Steve Stevens on guitar, Gilby Clarke on guitar, Duff McKagan also on bass. And we had this amazing band, right? I mean, one of the greatest bands you could ever imagine. And then you've got Gene Simmons out singing Kiss songs. You got Joe Elliott singing. We had to actually kind of beg him to sing Def Leppard songs because he really wanted to sing Mott the Hoople and Bowie. That's all he wanted to sing.
If you make your life, you play those songs all the time. You can't imagine how many times you must have played those songs, right?
Well, yeah. How many times do you think he has played Pour Some Sugar on Me?
Right.
How many times? Now, Joe told me some crazy stories about the times that Pour Some Sugar on Me was top 10 and my rock star. And so, boy, if you grew up on it, watching MTV and seeing those live videos, especially the Def Leppard videos, everything was true. I'm just going to tell you all your fantasies and dreams about what was happening. It was all absolutely true. But so we had this great tour. We had a private charter jet. It seated 64 people, just a mere 64 people. We had the Gene Simmons Family Jewels road crew and film crew with us, which was 11 people. And then everybody in the band had their, wife or significant other with them. There weren't kids or anything. We had a couple tour managers. I had a couple Navy SEALs. And that was our internal security.
Why did you have Navy SEALs?
Well, they were ex-Navy SEALs. They weren't active duty. And there's a lot of Navy SEALs that they are the elite, they are a brotherhood like you wouldn't believe, and they deserve all the respect you could ever give them. And they stick together. And so after, I guess, they serve, a lot of them do go and serve different kinds of security details. Some of them, you've heard of companies like Blackwater and things like that. It got a bad name, but they, for the wrong reasons in a lot of ways. But, people don't realize there's a lot of bad people in this world, and a lot of bad things happen in this world. And I guarantee you there's a lot of good people and a lot of kind of good, bad people that protect you. It's just like that. You can't handle the truth. You judge me. I sit on the wall and there's a lot of truth to that, because I saw it firsthand. I'll tell you that the guys that took care of me and took care of all of us and actually saved my life and saved many of our lives on that tour, literally, were guys that, they had methods that if you were going to judge them on paper, these would appear hardcore, you'd be like, is that a good guy or is that a bad guy? You're like, no, it's a good guy who's willing to put his life on the line to save your life, no matter what it takes. So sometimes it ain't like you see on the movies, kids. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, so I was on this amazing, had this opportunity to do this tour. It took about 9 months to put together. We raised millions and millions of dollars to take this, well, not millions and millions, but it took several millions of dollars to actually get this whole thing started, pay everybody, rent the jet, get overseas. And the one reason I talked about the weird thing on swine flu was I had to get a yellow fever inoculation. I'd never even heard of such a thing. I had to get a yellow fever inoculation simply because of, if I went from one country to another country, they required a yellow fever inoculation with as part of your passport, to even get in. So it's kind of like harkens, to what's going on nowadays. There's, that kind of idea has been around for a long time. So we booked the tour. We did a lot of great pre-press and radio, and we landed in Asuncion, Paraguay. And the thing was, we would put on a 2.5 hour, 3 hour show. All of a sudden I look over, there is Sebastian Bach from Skid Row. He joined us to sing. So we just had some great times, and we get to the hotel, and I run into a guy named Abe Laboriel Jr., and he's an amazing drummer. Look him up, Abe Laboriel. His father was an amazing drummer. And I see a couple guys I recognize. I said, hey, what are you doing in Asuncion, Paraguay? And he goes, well, I'm playing with Paul tonight. And I said, oh, yeah. And there he is. Oh, hi, Paul McCartney. How are you doing? Nice. Oh, very good. And we had literally probably 400 military at one point around this place. The security detail was unbelievable. We were in a 4 or 5 story hotel. It was the tallest building in all of Asuncion, for sure. They had a kind of a jungle language that they spoke there called Guaraní, and that's also the name of their currency, I believe. But I just thought it was so amazing for all those kids and all those adults to stand out in front of that place. And in one night, they saw the Beatles, Kiss, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, Deep Purple. They saw all this like one night, and all those guys I was with. Not all of them all the time, and Gene was kind of the most reserved because he was by far the most pursued by fans. But Duff McKagan would go over there and and sit there and talk to fans until they were done talking. He would sign guitars. He thought they were great. I mean, Steve Stevens is one of the most beautiful souls I've ever met on the planet. His wife, Josie, is amazing. So like these people were very giving. So, but can you tell me once in your life where you've ever heard the big, tour in Asuncion, Paraguay? This is probably the first time any of these kids and people had ever even seen anything like this kind of tour. I talked to kids on the ground and parents on the ground. A lot of parents were bringing their young children to these shows, And in some conversations I had with Gene Simmons, which is just so cool to be able to say, that, flying around on a jet with Gene Simmons, we talked about, but he was very, very touched at the number of parents, and then they would bring their children to the show. And so they're introducing a whole new generation, which is now technically a third generation of Kiss fan, being introduced here, or fourth generation. I know, sorry, Gene, if I got that wrong, but it was really amazing to see that how this music was multi-generational, and especially in South America, it was almost religious, because the first show in Asuncion, how people will sing along to lyrics of every concert? They sang along to the guitar riffs, and they sang along to the guitar solos. So like when we played Sweet Child of Mine, the whole crowd was going, ah, they were in unison singing. Like I get chills just talking about it, because it was amazing to look out on 15,000 people standing in front of you. Yesterday, I think we played on a polo field. We were on a polo field. They had a polo field there. And there's these crazy old concrete stands that looked like they'd been there for 100 years, and it was just insanity, but it was beautiful, just amazing. And we had a great show that night, and we jumped on a plane and went to Argentina, and went to Buenos Aires, and we went to this hotel, and it had a 20-foot wall around it. Like I didn't understand it. I learned a lot about South America there, that it's different than America. Each country is its own country. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, is it ever. And they don't necessarily want to be friends. And their soccer teams are definitely not friends. But everyone was so passionate about the music. And a lot of them had the same stories. It took me 3 months to save up just to come see this concert. And
wow.
we're like, and they were serious. Like, these weren't people trying to get backstage with the sob story. This was story after story. And so what I came to realize was South America was run a little bit different, especially from this side of the business. Each one of the promoters down there, they were hustling, baby. They were all independent promoters. There was no Live Nation or AEG down there. They were trying to get in, and they would get in, but most of the countries had their own ma and pa, if you will, promoters, and so those guys are hustling. But what it also tells you is they have got a lot of personal money on the line, and they have personal interests that their entire year is probably this concert. They may, and I found out Ecuador and other countries, they have laws on the books that if you sell a good or a service to a fellow Ecuadorian, and you don't deliver on that good or service, let's say you book a concert and that concert gets canceled and you have taken money for that, you have to return all that money. If not, you face going to jail until you pay back every penny of that money. Now, you don't hear about that going on in America. They cancel concerts like that willy-nilly. They run entire households' lives, but not over there. They hold every person accountable for every single penny right there, as long as, they don't have corporate whatevers. But so it's not all shady business down there. It's a lot of very personal business. And so they don't let a lot of stuff slide. And so I will say that by the time we got to Lima, Peru, and one of my greatest buddies, I know you're not listening to this, but Alberto Quesada Manacho. Hola. Mi hermano, but Alberto was the promoter in Lima, And he had some great sponsors. He kind of showed me around, and he was just a wonderful guy. And we had an assassination attempt on our well, at first it was a guy that was involved with the booking and the promotion of our actual tour, who had a dispute with several other promoters in South America as to how he had sold maybe this tour to them. They possibly hadn't fulfilled their obligations to the tour ahead of time, and their shows had gotten canceled, and their deposits had gotten retained and kept as part of the legal agreement they had signed. Mm-hmm. And so some of those people, when you're talking about $400,000, they're gonna, they're gonna let that go. And some people show up with knives and try to stab y'all in the lobby of the hotel when you arrive. And
is that what happened?
That's what happened.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And and so I had those two ex-Navy SEALs with us, and I don't say ex because they are Navy SEALs forever. So
right, but they're not serving anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah. I just want to make it clear that we didn't have U.S. military with us. But those two SEALs. One of the key things here is they were part of different SEAL teams that worked with the White House and whatever administration they were under at the time to do different missions, training missions and things like that with other countries. So they had trained every single security person that we had in Peru and Argentina and Paraguay. They were very large security details. 30 and 40 people, security details that we hired and we paid for, or the concert paid for, to watch us. I mean, this was huge. We had 11 to 16 vans just to move us from place to place. We had no less than 11 Sprinter vans just to move our party. Mm-hmm. And so it was like a small military operation every time we moved, just to get all the vans to all leave the concert venue and arrive at the hotel at the same time. You can't lose a van of rock stars in South America, okay?
No, but what you're describing to me, have you seen Jack Ryan, that series on Amazon?
No.
Is right out of season 2 of Jack Ryan. They're in South America. It's all the same shit. It's exactly like this. Traveling as a convoy down the... Yeah,
there was no military escort either, okay? Yeah, because that would draw attention. Yeah. And I mean, as if we didn't draw enough attention. But so those SEALs had trained... and I'll just say hey to him. Hey, Rob. Hey, Sarge. I love you and I miss you.
Is that the Sarge? Is that where the Sarge comes from?
No. No, not at all.
All right.
In fact, he is the exact opposite of a female Saint Bernard. He's a bulldog, man. He's a mother-scratching bulldog. But anyway, they had trained all these different security guys, and so these were also the only people down there around us that were allowed to carry guns. We certainly weren't allowed to carry guns or anything. So you should have seen some of the things in our pockets. I mean, scary stuff like needles on rings, and I mean like weird, crazy things. I was scared to death. I'm going to be honest. About half the time, I was petrified while I was down there. I had never experienced anything like this, and so when they had these other security detail, they would usually be on the ground a week ahead of us arriving. When we landed, we were handed an envelope at the airport that had all of our key cards for our hotel. We were all pre-checked in. All the rooms had been checked. Everything had been checked. You leave your luggage. Your luggage goes in another van, not with you, and the luggage gets delivered to your rooms and stuff for you. There is no everyone pulling their luggage and checking it. That does not happen. So we go where the deal is. We go right to the hotel. You go right to your room, everyone's safe, everyone's accounted for, your luggage is there, bing, bang, boom. And then they control the movements, it's pretty serious. And, there's a lot of what they call high value targets in that type of tour. I mean, Gene Simmons alone is, his net worth is astronomical. And so there's the fame. And then keep in mind, everybody had their wives, their girlfriends with them. They don't want them hurt. And we had a film crew with us. We had a film crew. Hello. But so anyway, we found out that there was a problem in the tour and that it was coming from within the tour. And we had to get that person disassociated with the tour immediately. And that happened. And so there was a person that left the tour immediately and left the country immediately. And that was the target of the original assassination attempt. And then there was a Rolling Stone article written about this. And I found out by reading that article, I didn't even know this, that during that time, there was a negotiation being made that in Argentina, not even Peru, but in Argentina, there was a negotiation being made with blanket cartel. Okay. Let's just say cartel down there that was planning to bum rush our hotel, kill several of us and kidnap the others and get that money back. And I was unaware of this, completely unaware of this. And so I was almost murdered the first time in Argentina by someone threatening me that may or may not have been associated with the tour, who may or may not have had an armed guard right there with them with an Uzi under his shirt that was Russian and absolutely going to shoot me. And then we get to Peru, and that person's off that tour, and people are still coming looking for their money for the shows that got canceled. And guess who's number 2 on the tour? Guess who did all the visa clearances and who's 6'4" and stands out like a sore thumb? Me. So there was a murder attempt on my life, and then I was sent to my room. I mean, I couldn't come out of my room. We had an armed guard on the floor. I couldn't leave my room without a SEAL. I had to have a Navy SEAL, one of the 2 guys, escort me out of my room. And so the only time I was allowed to leave from that point was to go from my suite, which thank God I had a suite, and I ordered all the expensive food I could. I ordered lobster thermidor, duck l'orange, both, which one's the appetizer, I was like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die happy. And, but literally they would take me down a different elevator shaft. I'd meet up with the tour in the basement where the parking lot was. We'd go right. And then we'd go to the concert venue, and most of that was kind of locked down in a lot of ways, but yeah, it was very scary, and we're only spending just a few days in each one of these countries. So you literally have no time to get your bearings or anything. So I was 100%, my life was 100% in the hands of those 2 SEALs, and some really great tour managers as well. Like Gooch was out there with us. I mean, dude, that son of a bitch was real deal. He was Smashing Pumpkins tour manager. He was tour manager for Kiss, active, I mean, these were some OGs. And I think if we didn't have that many OGs involved, I would have been, I wouldn't have come back.
I want to know in detail, how did they make the attempt on your life?
Oh, just going to stab me in the chest with a giant Bowie knife.
Just walking by you in the hotel lobby or whatever?
Yeah, right up to you. Yeah.
Wow.
They wanted to kill you in front of everybody. And they wanted everybody to see it. The guy screamed ahead of time. It wasn't a sneak.
That's a dumb move. What are you doing, man? You can't announce your. I mean, maybe it's an honor thing or something, but it's like you announce your presence to everybody. And
the shit broke loose, man. Because what we realized was that there were additional, what they considered assassins that were already registered and guests of the hotel. Oh. So we couldn't lock down. We did lock down. The hotel got locked down. Trust me. The head of the security of the hotel was standing right next to me in about 2 seconds. And yeah, the hotel, and I mean, the regular patrons of the hotel would never have known. what was really going on. And they would have really not, other than there's a crazy amount of rock stars in the lobby. But they didn't know that we went on, Code Yellow lockdown kind of, that I just made Code Yellow up, but that there's a security problem like that. And so it was, it was just strange. So we didn't really know. Like I said, I learned a lot about what was really going on afterward. If I had have known what was going on, oh my gosh, I would have gotten my ass out of that country. I would have used my credit card and maxed it out to get the very next flight out of that country. Yeah. I mean, I'm not in for kidnapping and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got back to America, I had a couple brushes with some very potential deadly situations because, people know how to get on airplanes and fly to other countries. That's and right. So that was honestly the end of my idea of being in the music business at that level. I had done a lot of things. I'd worked with Erykah Badu, and with Erykah Badu, I'd worked with Prince twice, Snoop Dogg, Dave Chappelle on multiple occasions. Got to be friends with Questlove, worked with other guys like Doyle Bramhall II and Derek Trucks, who are just amazing. And then, and all these incredible guys, that were involved with Kings of Chaos. That's the name of the band, by the way. I should name the band. It's called Kings of Chaos. But back on that tour, it was called the Rock and Roll All Stars. And the name got changed from the band Rock and Roll All Stars after that tour because the name was tainted. Mm-hmm. And so really that tour got cut short. And I will say in closing on this that every single guy I named on that tour cared more about the fans coming to those shows than their own pocketbooks in a lot of ways. They really, really did. And they were making promises to other promoters like, hey, we'll come back. We will come back and try to make up these shows that got canceled and stuff. So the tour kind of ended on a bad note. And, a couple of murder attempts that will end the tour quick, I think, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, honestly, it wouldn't have ended the tour. Trust me. Most of these guys, they were like, okay, well, been there.
Well, it was an attempt on their lives. I mean, what are they going to do, right? They weren't the ones. Really matter.
I mean, I think they'd been there, done that, I
guess,
really,
yeah. So they've probably seen it all.
Gene Simmons himself actually helped negotiate with one of the promoters who had gotten his show canceled. He negotiated to try to help the guy. I mean, Gene stepped right in as a business guy to try to help. And so it was quite an eye-opening experience for me because I grew up listening to that music. I have my own fantasies about that world of rock and roll. I mean, I've been involved with a lot of live shows, but not an international rock star concert tour in a private jet. I mean, and I'm talking about a big jet with all those bands. Mm-hmm. That's movie stuff, that doesn't happen twice in your lifetime for sure. And so I learned so much. I was so green. I was so green and such a baby in a lot of ways. And boy, oh boy, that was another one of those things that showed me how much growing up, if you will, I had to do, how many sad lessons I had to learn about the world and evil people and greed. And then for a little while, it ruined me on music, a little bit. It took away some of the way I appreciated music even. And so, it was, I don't recommend that anybody go through what I did. I mean, I wouldn't say, I would, I'd do it again, because I didn't die and I don't have any scars that are visible, from it. And so it, but it is one of those things I would have tried to do it a little bit differently.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a story time with Smitty right there. That went from right up there to cool to, that's dark.
Wow. That's incredible. Thank you for telling me that. That's crazy. Dan? That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a good one. Story time with Smitty. We'll do another one day when you guys want to hear another crazy story.
Speaking speaking of Mona Lisas, I don't know if this is a good segue. I can just cut around it.
Speaking of Mona Lisa,
How about Mother Russia Bleeds? You guys are releasing another game, special reserve games.
Do that again, man.
That is like a
That's
very
too-
different.
that's
Yeah.
Too good not to be able to do that.
That has to be in there.
These games developed. These are the Mona Lisas for these developers. This is their passion. This is their creation, and it certainly sounds like
Mother Russia bleeds.
it certainly sounds, just based on what you guys have said about this game in the past, it sounds like this is another case of like a labor of love. And this game that you guys are releasing now on, is it for PS4 and Switch or just Switch? Do we know yet?
Both
that's
platforms.
awesome.
Yeah, that's
Switch
a
and
beautiful
PS4.
thing.
Yeah,
Both.
and that it was originally just going to be for Switch, just simply because we didn't know if there maybe would be an appetite for this game in physical. You always kind of have to, it's just because it's a great game doesn't all in it translated well digitally does not mean it's going to be a superstar seller physically. It just may not have an appeal to certain collectors for whatever reason, and sometimes it's just timing too, right? So the developers behind Mother Russia Bleeds, great group named Le Cartel. And Le Cartel is based in the country of France, and they are not Russian. And so this is very much, a game they created. They most recently, also through Devolver Digital, had put out Heave Ho, which was what we would consider the complete and polar opposite of Mother Russia Bleeds. It's not even. It's like
two different worlds.
Yeah, it's like one's a Monopoly and the other one is a motorcycle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like not even the same, right? And so Mother Russia Bleeds has been one of those games that ever since Special Reserve Games came to be, we're in just now in our fourth year. I mean, we're not even 4 years old. That Broforce, Enter the Gungeon, some of those were the, when are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? So Mother Russia Bleeds, I was actually introduced to Mother Russia Bleeds that way. I didn't really know about it when it came out. I was introduced to it by fans. And so how cool is that, right? That's half the point of some of what we do, by the way, and why I always love the idea of developers and their Mona Lisas, helping expose consumers and fans to other developers and their Mona Lisas, just kind of like what we were talking about earlier, going into the old store where the guy selling you the software would give you a recommendation. That's kind of what this kind of is in a way. It still has that brotherhood and that sisterhood, if you will. But anyway, where were we?
Mother Russia Bleeds.
Mother Russia Bleeds was, it's one of those games that it's ultra violent.
That may be one way to put it.
It's pixel art. It is fun.
Oh, it checks all the boxes, man.
Yeah.
It's a beat 'em up game, much in the style of Double Dragon or Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
But much gorier than those games could be, right? Those games could not have a lot of blood or anything like that because they're had to be sold to kids. This one is not for kids; it's for adults.
Yeah.
I'm watching some gameplay footage of it right now.
Well, and there's even though it's like
choking a guy out here. What's going on?
Oh
with that?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But there's characters. There's real, actual. There's discernible good guys, bad guys. There's some really great characters in there too that I think are a little iconic here. And they're easy to identify with also. So it's not a fantasy game. It's very much steeped in reality in many ways. And then I guess we'll call it fantasy violence. If you want a good laugh, just go read the ESRB descriptors for that go along with the mature rating for it, and it takes up the entire space. I get them off and read them later. It's almost like that should be the marketing ad for the game. One of it is just the mature rating.
We've talked about how difficult it can be to write stuff for ESRB ratings to pass those and get those done. This one, although violent, it's very straightforward what's happening. So it was probably really easy to write that particular description down. I thought, this guy's grabbing him and choking him out. And, we're going to get that M rating.
Yep. Oh, my God. What's going on in the background here, though? Holy crap.
Yeah, well, there's I'm going to say this. this ain't for little kids.
No.
That mature rating. I mean, if you
They earned that.
Yeah, they earned it. So I mean, there is content in there that is certainly not meant for a young child at all. Really, I mean, I'm an old man saying that, but come on, man, you don't need to see everything until maybe at least 13, right?
Exactly.
13. I mean, maybe
Exactly.
12. But so Mother Russia Bleeds is something that we've been able to work directly with Le Cartel, of course, that we're so lucky to be able to work directly with each developer. Gotten some great key art. We've gotten sprites for every single character. We're going to be able to put out some, looking at doing some lenticular stuff. I don't know if it's actually going to work out or not, but I'm trying to do some lenticular cards and lenticular stickers because since we have the sprites for every single character, then that will lead to a really, a crisp and clear step in lenticular to 1, 2, 3, 4 frame, so I can have 3 movements and it's going to look pretty crisp. With my friend Pedro, when we did lenticular cards, that thing is such a fast moving, beautiful kind of game mixed in. It didn't lend itself too well to chopping out frames out of 50 frames that I had, in a second to look at, to take 6, frames. And that's what makes a lenticular card. So anyway, not to go down the lenticular highway here, but there's a lot of cool things that we'll be able to do with Mother Russia Bleeds from a physical presentation through the reserves and some of the accessories that go along with it that totally accentuate some of what I consider cutest, coolest, funnest things about this ultra violent, crazy game. The character movements and the design that was intended from the developers. So a lot of that's going to be translated into the cover art, the jacket art as well. We're going to have multiple jacket art and cover art versions that may or may not ship with it. There's a lot of cool things. I haven't said, it's not settled science, so I don't want to really talk about it and get recorded saying because I'm going to change my mind on this tomorrow. But it's coming out June 23rd. We're going to have a set number of units for both Switch and PS4, and our partners at Limited Run Games are also going to get an alternate cover variant from us that will be like the Switch single we did with Hotline Miami. Same kind of idea, where they have the single, we have the reserve, if you will. And so we get more of the box and the maybe the additional accessories through the special reserve. But June 23rd is when that sale is going to go live on specialreservegames.com. And of course, all our sales go live at high noon Texas time. That's 12 p.m. Central, -5 GMT. It's a great game. So we've been able to work on this for a little bit and honor it the way that we should, with the great packaging, the sequential numbering, the amazing reserve box, some great art accessories around it. And, just an honor again to Le Cartel for trusting us to take their amazing Mother Russia Bleeds a Mona Lisa and make it physical forever and ever and ever.
I'd like to remind everybody that if you follow us on Twitter, so twitter.com/specialreserves, you will be able to catch further news on this as we release further details. And then, of course, the best way, come join our Discord server. So discord.gg/specialreservegames. And you'll be able to be one of the first people to hear all the juicy details that Smitty wants to share.
And if you're old school, you can sign up for our newsletter on our website. We have a newsletter sign up right on our specialreservegames.com
Shout
website.
out to J-Ball.
Yeah, J-Ball does a lot of great writing for us. Shout out to Amanda as well. And
on the Twitter
Eric,
and Instagram, right?
And the Gram. We call it the Gram.
Facebook, Facey Space.
Yeah, and then you'll always see Eric in Discord. You'll also see me. I'm under Ask Smitty in Discord. And in fact, most of the crew from Special Reserve is in that Discord channel, because let me just say how much I love Discord, and whoever the people are that made Discord and run Discord, thank you very much. I want to tell you, I run my entire company through Discord. Like we do share screens, we do collaborative design. We're on Discord right now, recording. And then we can take all of that. What the magic from it, of this for me, is we can be in the middle of a creative idea. Eric and I can be talking about something, a contest, anything we want to do. We can, in real time, go over and touch our people, especially the Dog Fathers, which is the elite group in our Discord that help boost servers, and they participate at a high level. These are super amazing people and really a lot of fun to talk to, by the way, so jump in there just for that. But, the technology to be able to go and talk to our fans or somebody else and just take their temperature, do a poll, ask a question, and then go right back into the creative meeting, never leave the creative meeting at all. There's a lot of abilities to connect with other people, to use entertainment as a way, to bring people together, but it also helps me a lot in designing products and designing things and then being able to speak to people one-on-one about them. And then it doesn't feel like we're running a bunch of marketing ads and running a buy this.
Yeah, it's not artificial. No, we're being genuine.
Yeah, we're like, they're in the mix. They're kind of a part of the product design.
Absolutely, they are.
A lot of the people in the Discord you see it, Eric, all the time. Like I upload pictures from the printer, or when I get a print press back, or when I get a press test, or I'll ask, hey, do you guys like resin figurines? So all that stuff comes into play all through Discord. So anyway, big shout out to Discord. Hopefully that was a 5-minute ad for you. It looks like we're out of time. I've talked a lot. You've listened a lot. Thank you, Dan, for always helping with the great production and being a great voice on the show. Thanks to Eric, Collector's Corner, and everything he does. And my story time with Smitty. You actually made it through. So we'll do it again, but right now it's officially
Game over.